Hey guys, this is Ms. Dyer, and this video is for Wednesday, September the 2nd. Yesterday, we finished up connective tissue proper, and we talked about fluid connective tissue. Today, we're going to finish up with connective tissue by talking about supporting connective tissues. There are two types of supporting connective tissues, and that is cartilage and bone. Now, we will see that there are three different types of cartilage, and we'll be talking about all three of those, and you will be expected to be able to identify those by looking at a picture. You'll also be expected to know their function and location. And then we will be looking at bone, and you'll also be expected to be able to identify bone as well as its function and location. So let's go ahead and get started. Cartilage has a dense network of collagenous fibers, and some types of cartilage have elastic fibers as well. As we talk about cartilage and bone, remember they are both types of supporting connective tissue. And as we go through the two of them, I will be pointing out similarities and differences. They have a lot of similarities because they are both types of supporting connective tissue, but they do have many differences. So pay attention to those, and when you complete your interactive notebook over this lesson, you will actually be completing a Venn diagram where you will be listing similarities and differences between cartilage and bone. So we will see that both cartilage and bone have collagen fibers. Bone does not have elastic fibers, but cartilage, some types of cartilage do. Sorry. They both have a firm matrix. The bone matrix is going to be more solid, whereas the cartilage matrix is more gel-like. The reason why the cartilage matrix is more gel-like is because it has chemicals in it known as chondroitin sulfates. Now we will see that the bone matrix is hard because it has different chemicals in it. The cells in cartilage are called chondrocytes. Chondro means cartilage, cyte means cell, so literally that means cartilage cells. And these cells are found in pockets called lacuna. So because the matrix of cartilage is firm, then we're going to have pockets where the cells reside.
Ms. Holland, dial 2600, please.
If you imagine the classroom or the walls of your bedroom as being the lacuna, the pocket, then you sitting inside your bedroom, you would be the chondrocyte, the cartilage cell, or me sitting here in my classroom, I would be the cartilage cell, the chondrocyte. We're going to see that bone also has lacuna because, again, just like the cartilage matrix is firm, the bone matrix is also solid and hard. And so you have to have little pockets kind of carved out in that matrix where those cells can live. And those little pockets, those little spaces where the cells live are called lacuna. And we'll be able to see those on in the pictures when we look at the pictures. There is also a perichondrium that surrounds cartilage, just like there is a periosteum that surrounds bone. And the perichondrium has two layers, just like the bone of the periosteum of the bone has two layers. There is a outer layer of connective tissue. Specifically, it's made of dense irregular connective tissue. We just talked about that earlier, that dense irregular, we talked about it yesterday actually, that dense irregular connective tissue could be found in the perichondrium around cartilage. And then there is an inner layer that is cellular, and it contains cells that can actually become chondrocytes. The cellular layer contains chondroblasts, and they will become chondrocytes as they mature. Cartilage, we will see, can grow in two different ways, whereas bone can only grow in one way. Cartilage can undergo both interstitial and appositional growth. During interstitial growth, those chondrocytes, the chondrocytes in the cartilage itself divide, and it causes the cartilage to get larger. And this type of growth occurs only during fetal development, so only when you are a fetus in your mama's belly. Once you are born, and even before you're born, but definitely after you're born, the only type of growth happening is appositional growth. And this is where those chondroblasts in the inner layer of the perichondrium become chondrocytes. And they lay down on top of the cartilage that's already there and make it wider and thicker. And again, as I said, this happens during fetal development, but it happens after birth as well. So all the way into all the way through your adulthood. Actually, it's not just into adolescence, but all the way through your adulthood. Appositional growth is occurring. Cartilage never stops growing. If you've ever noticed, it's especially noticeable on elderly men, how large their ears and their noses are. Okay, your nose contains cartilage, and so does the flap of your ear, and it grows your whole life. And so that's the reason why you can especially tell it with elderly men, that their noses seem to be so large and their ears seem to be so large, because their cartilage has been growing their whole life. So if they're 80 years old, their cartilage has been growing for 80 years. And so, of course, that the nose and the ears look really large sometimes. Okay, that's just showing the growth. Now we're going to look at the types of cartilage. We're going to be looking at hyaline cartilage, fibrocartilage, and elastic cartilage. We're going to look at hyaline cartilage first, and this is a picture of hyaline cartilage. Again, I like to say that the hyaline cartilage kind of looks like eyes looking out at you, because those pockets, like here are the pockets, and inside the pockets are the cells. And like here, you can see this is a chondrocyte inside the lacuna. You can see that little dot right there is the nucleus. This circle here is the cell, but that cell is in that pocket. Here is a pocket that looks like it's empty. It's probably not. There's probably a cell in there, but you can see that's the lacuna, and then the cell would be inside of that pocket. Now, again, remember that cartilage contains collagen fibers and sometimes elastic fibers. Specifically in hyaline cartilage, you're going to have collagen fibers. Hyaline cartilage is the most common type of cartilage in your body. And again, it does have collagen fibers, but looking at it under the microscope, you can't see those fibers. You can't see those lines, which would be the fibers with normal stains. Now, but if you have special staining, you can see them, but with normal stain, you won't see the collagen fibers under the microscope. The biggest function of hyaline cartilage is that it's reducing friction between bones. So where can we find it? Well, obviously we can find it in our joints between bones, but you can also find it connecting your ribs to your sternum. The cartilage that connects your ribs to your sternum is called costal cartilage, and it's made of hyaline cartilage. You can find it in your trachea, your larynx. You can even find it in the embryonic skeleton. So when you're a baby, before you have bones, your bones are made of hyaline cartilage. And we'll talk more about that later when we talk about your skeleton. We'll talk about how that hyaline cartilage is replaced with bone. Here's another picture. Again, you can see in these lacuna, like here's a lacuna, there's more than one cell. You can see there's several cells in some of these lacuna in this picture. Okay, the next type of cartilage that we're going to talk about is fibrocartilage. Again, to be able to tell the difference between it and hyaline cartilage. Okay, remember they both have chondrocytes in lacuna. They both are also going to have collagen fibers. Remember, with the hyaline cartilage, you cannot see the collagen fibers. With the fibrocartilage, you can see the fibers very well. You see all these blue and black lines, those are the collagen fibers. And then you can see scattered around, here's one, those are the chondrocytes in the lacuna. So you got one here, you got a few scattered around. So the big difference between hyaline cartilage and fibrocartilage is that fibrocartilage has lots of collagen fibers and we can see them. And number two, it has fewer chondrocytes. So it just has scattered chondrocytes kind of scattered around. Whereas if you remember when we go back and look at the hyaline cartilage, you can see lots of cells in lacuna. You can see them there. With the fibrocartilage, you don't see as many cells. There's fewer cells and a lot more fibers. With hyaline cartilage, there's more cells and you don't see the fibers at all. So again, the collagen fibers are interwoven, and there's just a few scattered chondrocytes. The biggest function for it is that it resists compression and absorbs shock. That's the function I want you to know. And then where we can find it in the discs between our vertebrae, our intervertebral discs. So if you've ever heard of anybody saying, oh, I have a slipped disc in my spine or something, well, they have damaged fibrocartilage in their spine. You can find it in your symphysis pubis, which is basically your two hip bones kind of come together in the front. And right here in between where they come together, there is a pad of fibrocartilage that prevents those two bones from, bumping into one another when you move around and stuff and causing pain and things like It also forms your knee pad. So in your knee, if you've ever heard of anybody talking about hurting their knee pad or hurting their knee and having surgery on the cartilage in their knee, again, it's their fibrocartilage in their knee that they have damaged. Here's another picture. Again, you can see here's the lacuna, here's the cell inside, and all those wavy blue lines, those are all the collagen fibers. Something else that we didn't mention is that if you remember when we were talking about epithelial tissues, and we talked about how they are avascular, but connective tissues are vascular, meaning they have blood vessels. And I mentioned there's only one connective tissue that is not vascular, and that is cartilage. So cartilage is the only connective tissue that is avascular. It does not contain blood vessels. And because of this, cartilage heals very slowly. You need blood to provide nutrients and oxygen for energy so that cells can divide and growth and repair can occur. Since there's not blood vessels in cartilage, then cartilage doesn't receive as much nutrients and oxygen for energy as other tissues. And so the cells can divide, they can divide and growth can happen. It just happens very slowly. And repair happens very slowly. So this is the reason why when someone damages an intervertebral discs, or they damage the pad in their knee, or they damage the cartilage in any joint, it causes them pain, and it takes forever for them to feel better, and sometimes they never do. It's because cartilage heals very slowly because it doesn't have blood vessels, it doesn't have oxygen and nutrients to provide the energy needed for those cells to divide so that repair can happen when it's injured. Also, this is the reason why that it also grows very slowly. So when you have that elderly man that has the huge nose and the big ears, and he's 80 years old, well, think about if cartilage grew normally, okay? The nose on his face would be huge, and the ears on his head would be huge because they've been growing for 80 years. But because cartilage doesn't have blood vessels, it's avascular. It doesn't have the oxygen for energy or the nutrients that it needs to grow very quickly, so it grows very slowly. So that's the reason why, even though the cartilage grows for your entire life, the nose and the ears aren't just huge when you get older. The last type of cartilage is elastic cartilage. And to differentiate this one from hyaline and fibrocartilage, remember hyaline cartilage, we cannot see the fibers, but there are many cells in lacuna that look like eyes looking at you. Remember, with fibrocartilage, there's lots of collagen fibers and we can see them, but there's not very many cells. They're very scattered. With elastic cartilage, you can see the fibers. If you see all the purple lines around here, those are all the fibers. You can see the fibers and the cells, and there's lots of both. So lots of fibers and lots of cells. So lots of little eyes looking back at you. So again, this is lacuna with cartilage cells inside of it. So again, elastic cartilage is the type of cartilage that has not only collagen fibers, but also elastic fibers. So lots of elastic fibers and collagen fibers and lots of chondrocytes everywhere. The thing, again, elastic, it's very flexible. It stretches and recoils. So that's the function that I want you to remember for elastic cartilage. And then where can we find it? We can find it in the pinna or flap of our ear. We can find it in the tip of our nose. So this is the reason why we can push the flap of our ear forward and it bounces back, because it's stretchy and flexible, and it stretches and recoils. It's elastic cartilage. The tip of our nose, we can push our nose over and it bounces back because, again, it contains elastic cartilage. Here is another picture. Again, you can see lots of pink and purple lines. Those are the fibers, and then we can see lots of cells as well. Okay, now let's look at bone tissue. Bone is also called osseous tissue. You do need to be familiar with that name. Remember that whereas cartilage matrix is more gel-like because it contains chondroitin sulfate, the bone matrix is more solid and hard because it contains calcium salts. So the chondroitin sulfate makes the cartilage matrix gel-like. The calcium salts make the bone matrix hard and solid. Remember that both bone and cartilage do have collagen fibers, and so the calcium salts make the bone hard. The collagen fibers make the bone flexible. Cells, again, remember in cartilage we had chondrocytes in lacuna. Well, in bone we have osteocytes in lacuna, so they both do have lacuna. We also have osteoblasts and osteoclasts. Blast, remember, means to give rise to or to produce, and osteo means bone. So literally this means produce bone. So they secrete bone. Clast means to destroy. So literally osteoclast means to destroy bone. And osteoclasts break down bone. And we will, when we talk about bone, the unit on bone and the skeleton, we will talk about how osteoblasts and osteoclasts work together to remodel our bone constantly. So constantly osteoclasts are breaking down old bone, and osteoblasts are creating new bone to replace it so that your bones stay fresh and flexible and don't get hard and brittle. We also have passages that connect the lacuna with the osteocytes inside to one another. And these passages are used so that those osteocytes can communicate with one another. And also, this is how oxygen and nutrients get from blood vessels in the bone to these cells that are surrounded by this kind of hard, solid matrix. It's these passages that allow the oxygen and nutrients to diffuse from blood vessels to the cells in the lacuna. And these passages are called canaliculi. Again, remember that bone is vascular. Remember, cartilage is avascular. It doesn't have blood vessels, but bone is vascular. It does have blood vessels. Here's a picture of bone. Notice it looks like the rings of a tree trunk. So it's a very characteristic picture. Here in the center, we can see what we call the Haversian canal or the osteonic canal or the central canal, this dark circle. That is where the blood vessels would be. The little, what looks like little cracks, the little light lines that look like cracks, those are the canaliculi. And the darker little dots here that are arranged in rings around that center circle, those are the lacuna with the osteocytes inside. And so you can see the little cracks are actually connecting the lacuna to each other and to the central canal. And so this allows blood vessels and oxygen and nutrients from the blood vessel that would be in the central canal to diffuse out through those little cracks, which are the canaliculi, to get to the little dark dots, which are the lacuna, and the cells, the osteocytes, are inside there. Again, the periosteum, like the cartilage, has a layer, has a perichondrium with two layers that surrounds it. Well, the periosteum is the same tissue that surrounds the bone, and it does have those two layers. The outer layer that is made of dense, irregular connective tissue, and then the inner layer that's made of cells that can, they're actually osteoblasts are in that inner cellular layer, and they lay down more bone on top of what's already there. And so because bone does have that intercellular layer containing osteoblasts, remember osteoblasts produce bone, they secrete bone, so they will secrete bone and lay down bone on top of what's already there, causing the bone to get thicker and wider. And remember, that is called appositional growth. So bone undergoes only appositional growth. Bone does not undergo interstitial growth. Only cartilage undergoes interstitial growth. And again, unlike cartilage, bones can also undergo regular repair and replacement on a regular basis. And again, this is because, as I said earlier, those osteoblasts and osteoclasts. Osteoclasts will break down old or damaged bone, and then osteoblasts will lay down new bone in its place. That doesn't happen in cartilage. And then bones can also respond to stresses placed upon them. So if you are exercising a lot, you move a lot, then your bones will get harder and thicker because you are placing stress on them. If you are a couch potato, you don't get up and exercise and move around a lot, then your bones will get thinner and more brittle because you're not using them. And it is literally true. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's not just true for your mind and the information that you learn. It's also true for your bones and your muscles. If you do not lose them, your body will break them down because you're not using them. Your body thinks you don't need them. Here's another picture. Again, here's that central canal with the blood vessels inside. So bone is vascular. Here are the little cracks, the little canaliculi that are connecting. Here are the lacuna with the osteocytes inside. You can't see that. Here's a lacuna here. The little dark dots are the lacuna. And then the more the gray, those are the little passages called canaliculi. Okay, and that will be it for today. Again, remember you do have some notes to take as you watch that video, and you also have an interactive notebook. Here's the Venn diagram I was talking about. Again, what you're going to do, this is the characteristics that are unique just to bone. That's where you're going to type them. The characteristics that are unique to just cartilage, you'll type here. And then the characteristics that both share, you'll type in this box. And so you can just double click in the box and then start typing. If you don't have enough room to type everything in the box, you can always highlight the text and make it smaller. But again, this is a Venn diagram, and I actually inserted text boxes so that you would be able to type inside of these circles. And then you have 4 different pictures to identify. Give me the characteristics that you used to identify. What did you see? What did it look like that helped you to identify it? Give me one function and one location. Before we leave, bone is a lot like blood as far as location goes. You might want to say, oh, it's all over your body. Well, for blood, we would say, well, our blood is in our blood vessels. Well, where is our bone? Well, we do have bone all over our body, but more specifically, we would say our bone is in our skeleton. So, when it comes to location of blood, you're going to say in your blood vessels. When it comes to location of bone, you're going to say in your skeleton. I think that would be a good location. So we have this picture. Hope it looks familiar. Here's another one. See all the blue lines, and we have some scattered little cells. Here's a lacuna with a chondrocyte. There's one. So the little pink dots are the nucleus of the cells, and you can see them just kind of scattered around. There's a picture where we see lots of lacuna with cells, and we have the pink. If you look closely, you can see little pink lines everywhere. Or no, they're not really pink lines. They're like just kind of dots maybe. So we're not really seeing lines here. We're seeing more like dots. This one, we have lots of purple lines everywhere, all over the place, going all different directions. And then we have the chondrocytes in lacuna, and lots of them as well. So lots of cells and fibers here. Cells, but no fibers here. Few scattered cells and lots of blue fibers here. So hint, hint. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.